Welcome back to the third and final part of John and Mrs. John Little's escape to Canada. And this time I'm going to be moving back and forth with when it's Mrs. John Little and when it's John who's speaking. So I'll start with John. In making my escape, my main difficulty was in crossing the Ohio bottoms before reaching the river. The water was black and deep. I bound our packages on my wife's back, placed her on a log as a man rides on horseback, and I swam pushing the log, holding it steady to keep her up. Had the log turned right or left, she would have slipped off and the packs would have sunk her. It would have been death, sure, but worse than death was behind us, and to avoid that, we risked our lives. When we had crossed one, we would presently come on another and have to go through the same again. By and by, I would think this must be the last, but when we had crossed this and gone over some little island, there'd be another. Oh dear, it seems as if I could see it now. I almost repented that I had started, but on I went. There was another and another good swimming creeks, but when I had crossed the last one, my spirit rose again, my heart cheered up, and I thought I could go through all. After we got to a place where we intended to pass the night, I would leave my wife and go and look around to see if there was any white men. I was like an old hunting dog who, when he was tread a coon, will not believe his eyes, but goes scenting about to see it if the track has left the tree. If not, he will come back, look at the coon, bark, and then scent again. So he was talking about his hunting skills. I was hunted like a wolf in the mountains all the way to Canada. In 3 months I had to go to many places to steal our food. I would have asked for it, but if I did, it was where's your pass? To avoid this meanness and the risk of capture, I was obliged to look out for myself. I had made good use of my time. One night, on entering a dairy near a farmhouse, the door creaked and an old man called out, "Sal?" But I took some cakes and Sal made no answer. When I was traveling in the north, I found that men worked days and slept nights without fear because they were honest. At the south, they do not have this comfort. The overseer watches through the day and the master is on the lookout in the night. I saw the difference between free labor and slave labor. The northern man labors in the day and sleeps soundly all night. He does not spend his day in laying deep schemes to whip an N-words back and then start up at night in unexpected places like a ghost. Yeah, they have to do that, sins, man. So, Mrs. John Little. My shoes gave out before many days. Then I wore my husband's old shoes till they were all used up. Then we came on barefooted all the way to Chicago. My feet were blistered and sore and my ankles swollen, but I had to keep on. There was something behind me driving me on, slavery. At the first water we came to, I was frightened, as I was not used to the water. It was a swift but shallow stream. My husband crossed over and I was obliged to follow. At the Ohio bottoms was a great difficulty, so they both agree on that. The water was in some places very deep. It was black, dirty water. I was scared all but to death, but I had become somewhat used to hardship. If I had seen a white face, I would have run into the river. I felt afraid at getting into the boat to cross the Ohio River. I had never been in any boat whatever. Now to get on this in the night frightened me. "John," said I, "don't you think we'll drown?" "I don't care if we do," said he. We reached Cairo. Well enough. Cairo's Illinois. At Cairo, the galley nippers, which are mosquitoes, were so bad we made a smoke to keep them off. Soon after I heard a bell ring. Said I, "John, somebody's dead." It was a steamboat bell tolling. Presently there she was, a great boat full of white men. We were right on the river's bank and our fire sent the smoke straight up into the calm. We lay flat on the ground. John read the name, Maria. No one noticed us. After the boat was gone, we had a hearty laugh at our good luck, thinking there was no more trouble. We did not put out our fire. Presently came a Yahoo boat. They saw our fire and hailed, "Boat ashore! Boat ashore! Run away inwards! Run away inwards!" We lay close and the boat kept on. We put out our fire and went further back from the river, but the mosquitoes were so bad we made another fire. But a man with a gun then came along, looking up into the trees. I scattered the fire to put it out, but it smoked so much the worse. We at last hid in the thicket of briars, where we were almost devoured by mosquitoes for want of a little fire. Now back to John. From Jackson to the Ohio River was called 140 miles. Crossed the river to Cairo. Then we footed through Illinois to Chicago. All the way we lay by day and traveled nights. I forgot the name of that city and wandered out a way and got to the river. It was the Mississippi, but I didn't know it. We crossed into Black Hawk Indian Territory. There I was so lost and bewildered that I had at last to go up to the house to inquire the way. I found there a man with true abolition principles who told us the route. He said a man and his wife had been carried back to slavery from that neighborhood. He did not take us across the river, but we found a way over. Then we walked on. My wife was completely worn out. It was 3 months from the time we left home before we slept in a house. We were in the woods, ignorant of the roads and losing our way. At one time we came to a guide board which said 5 miles to Park's Landing. I learned to spell out print a little. This was Sunday night. I took the direction I wanted to travel as near as I could, and we went on. On Wednesday afternoon, we came back to the same guide board, 5 miles to Park's Landing. Many such roundabout cruises we made, wearing ourselves out without advancing. This was what kept us so long in the wilderness and in suffering. So that is a sermon right there, right? Not keep on coming back to the same point without changing or going in the right direction. I'd suffered so much from white men that I had no confidence in them and determined to push myself through without their help. Yet I had to ask at last and met with a friend instead of an enemy at the Chicago. Money was made up to help me on, and I took passage for Detroit and then crossed to Windsor in Canada. That was the first time I set my foot on free soil. But before we get there, I'll go back to Mrs. John Little. We started to find a road and then met with a white woman. Good evening, said she. My husband asked if she would sell him some bread. This was to make conversation so he could inquire the road. Oh yes, just come to my house. I'll give you some bread. We went to the house and presently her husband came in. He asked, "Have you got free papers?" John answered, "No." "Where are you traveling to?" "To the Upper Lakes. We're not allowed to let a colored man go through here without free papers. If we do, we're liable to a fine of $40. He allowed us to remain all night, but in the morning we were to go before a judge at Doherty, and if we were free, we would go on. This was the woman's arrangement. The man did not seemed inclined to stop us. She said, "If we stop you, we shall get $50 apiece for you. That's a good deal of money, you know." Yeah, needing to profit on other people's suffering, yeah. The man asked John if he had a pistol. John produced one. The man said, "'Twas no harm. He would take care of it for him," and locked it up. They lived in a little dirty log hut. They took the bed off the bedstead and lay down on it close to the door so it could not be opened without disturbing him. The man took a nice silver-mounted pistol from a cupboard, loaded it, and placed it where he could reach it in the night. We lay on the bedstead, they on the floor. She was the evil one. She had made the plans. Their name was Smith, so this is the first time she's calling somebody's name. Usually they just use the letters of the people's name. At about 3 o'clock in the morning, husband aroused me, and I'm going away from here. I don't trust them. Now other folks are asleep. We both got up. John spoke roughly. Mr. Smith, he aroused. Well, we are unwell and must pass. We'll be back very soon. Mrs. Smith got up very readily and pulled the bed away a little so we could slip out. As soon as John passed by the pistol, he put his hand on it and took it in exchange for his old one. It is a beautiful rifle pistol, percussion lock. John has been offered $15 for it. If the man will come here with John's old flintlock, my husband will exchange back and give him boot. I think that means boat, but I'm reading what I see. I'm very sorry for my friend Mrs. Smith that she did not get the $100 to go a-shopping with in Dorothy. I'm much obliged to her for her night's lodging. Of course she's not sorry. She's just being saucy. Okay, continuing John's account, we had not a second suit of clothes apiece. We had one bed quilt and one blanket and $18 in money. I bought 2 axes in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. One for myself and one for my wife. Half a dozen plates, knives and forks, an iron pot and a Dutch oven. That's all for the tools and furniture. For provisions, I bought 50 weight of flour and 20 pounds of pork. Then we marched into the wilderness where there were thousands of acres of woods which the chain had never run around since Adam. At night we made fire and cut down a tree and put some slots like wig ham. This was in February when the snow was 2 feet deep. It was about 14 years ago. We made our bed of cedar boughs from a swamp. Thus we traveled 3 or 4 days, seeing plenty of deers, wolves, as plenty as sheep are now, were howling about us, and bears were numerous. At last I came to a place where I judged from the timber the land was good, and so it proved. My nearest neighbor was 2 miles off. I felt thankful that I had gotten to a place where I could not see the face of a white man. For something like 5 or 6 years, I felt suspicious when I saw a white man, thinking he was prying around to take some advantage. Yeah, PTSD, it's too much trauma. This was because I had been so bedeviled and harassed by them. At length the feeling wore off through kindness that I received from some here and from abolitionists who came over from the States to instruct us, and I felt that it was not the white man I should dislike, but the mean spirit which is in some men, whether white or black. I am sensible of that now. The settlers were to take as much land as they please of the indigenous people's land. Can you believe it? When it should be surveyed at various prices according to quality. Mine was the highest price, as I had taken of the best land. It was $3.70 an acre. I took 100 acres at first and then bought in 50. Myself and wife built us here a little log hut amid the snow. We made it ourselves, shouldering the logs to bring up to the place. We went to the cedar swamp and split out boards for the roof. We had plenty of firewood, which served instead of blankets. Wolves, any quantity, were howling about constantly night and day. Big savage wolves, which alarmed the people. Some men carrying meat were chased by them. Isaac Johnson was obliged to take up a tree. We got used to them on our way here and did not fear them at all. In the spring, plenty of bears came about us, after sheep and hogs. One day my wife and I were walking out and we saw 4 bears in the cherry trees eating the fruit. My wife went for the gun, called some neighbors, and we killed all 4. Wow, that's a lot of killing. Now the wolves are all gone and the deer and the bears are scarce. There are idle men enough around here, colored and white, to drive them away. When they had better be chopping and clearing land, so he's saying they're idle and they shouldn't be working. We went chopping day and night. There was no delay. We logged the trunks with our own hands, without cattle or horses or help, all with our own hands, and burned them. I raised that year 110 bushels of spring wheat and 300 bushels of potato on land which we had cleared ourselves and cultivated without plow or drag. All was done with the hoe and hand rake. This I can prove by my nearest neighbor. I got the seed on credit of some Dutchmen in towns. By promising to work for them in the harvest, they put their own price on seed and on my labor. They're still kind of controlling you there, but I have nothing to say. In the next winter, we went to clearing again. My wife worked right along with me. I did not realize it then, for we were raised slaves, the women accustomed to work, and undoubtedly the same spirit comes with us here. I did not realize it then, but now I see that she was a brave woman. I'm glad you caught on, because she's been brave and saucy from the beginning. I thank God that freedom has never overweighted us. Some it has, but I've worked to support it and not to discourage it. I thought I ought to take hold and work and go ahead, to show the others that there's a chance for the colored man in Canada, to show the spirit of a man and a desire to improve his condition. As it is often said by slaveholders, that if the N-words were free and put in place where they could be together, they would starve to death. I wanted to show to the contrary. I have 150 acres of land, 110 of it cleared and under good cultivation, 2 span of horses, a yoke of oxen, 10 milk cows and young cattle, 20 heads of hogs, 40 head of sheep. I have 2 wagons, 2 plows, and 2 drags. I would like to show this to the everlasting scoundrel E, my former master, and tell him, all this I would have done for you cheerfully, and thought myself at home, and felt happy in doing it, if you would have let me. But I'm glad that you scared me and abused me, and it had scarred me and abused me, and it has given to myself and my family the fruit of my own labor, as you deserve. They need to work for their own stuff. I'd like to show it to those stout, able men who, while they might be independent here, remain in town as waiter, black boots, cleaning houses, and driving coaches for men who scarcely allow them enough for a living. To them I say, go into the backwoods of Queen Victoria's Dominion, Canada, and you can secure an independent support. I'm the man who has proved it. Never man came into an unsettled country with lesser means to begin. So he's talking about being self-sufficient rather than entrepreneur, rather than waiting on other people to pay you. A theme that's coming back around now, right? Some say you cannot live in the woods without a year's provision, but this is not so. I've come here and proved to the contrary. I've hired myself out 2 days to get things to work on at home. 1, if there's a man in the Free States who says the colored people cannot take care of themselves, I want them to come here and see John Little. There's no white blood in me, not a drop. My mother's father was imported from Africa, and both my grandparents on my father's side were also imported. I can prove to him that everything which was due on the land is paid. I've raised 700 bushels of wheat last year, 200 bushels of potatoes, 100 bushels of peas, 250 bushels of oats, 10 tons of hay, fattened 1,500 weight of pork, 1 ox, besides other produce of less consequence. I have now 50 acres of wheat, 18 acres of oats, 10 of peas, 1 acre of potato, 20 acres of meadow grass. I have horses, oxen, cows, hogs, sheep, and poultry in abundance. The man who was a bad N-word in the South is here a respected, independent farmer. I thank God that I'm respected in this neighborhood by the best men the country can afford, can lend or borrow $2,000 anytime I'm asked, or choose to ask for it. I don't say this for the sake of boasting. I say it to show that the colored men can take care of themselves, and to answer any who deny that Canada is a good country. So I close with Mrs. John Little. I got to be quite hardy, quite used to water and bushwhacking, so that by the time I got to Canada, I could handle an axe or hoe or anything. I felt proud to be able to do it, to help get cleared up, so that we could have a home and plenty to live on. I now enjoy my life very well. I have nothing to complain of. We have horses and a pleasure wagon, and I can ride out and when and where I please without a pass. The best of the merchants and clerks pay me as much attention as though I were a white woman. I am as politely spoken to as any woman would wish to be. I have 2 children by death. One little girl is all that is spared to me. She is but 4 years old. I intend to have her well educated if the Lord lets us. So basically, they've told us to our faces that they went from slavery to thriving while slavery was still going on. Abolition had not come in the US. So yeah, amazing stuff. I hoped you like it. I loved it. Thanks so much for listening.